So today, our next speaker is a bit more of a classic career, but we're going to listen to Laura, who's going to talk to us.
All right, hey guys, my name is Laura and I'm a chemical engineering student at RMIT. So I'm in my final honours year at the moment, but I'm going to chat about some of the opportunities I've had since choosing maths at high school and then going into university. So I'm going to start with a joke, and I feel like I have the perfect crowd because you all like maths, so if I'm going to get a laugh, it should be today. So why was the atheist bad at exponentials? Because he didn't believe in higher powers. Okay, but the thing about that joke, it's a classic, but it's this word where we say, like, so many people say it, I'm bad at maths. Like, I can't do maths, or they'll say, like, I'm one of those people that I'm a sporty person, don't do maths. And, I mean, we're all guilty of it. I say it. I always say, oh, I am so bad at PE, don't give me a ball. But the issue with this is, the reason I'm bad at PE is because I do not practice PE. I don't go to the gym. I don't bother practicing dribbling for basketball. I don't try to be good at netball. I'm more of a social netball player. And it's like that with maths. Some people are like, I'm bad at maths. But if you've sat down and you've really worked at maths, how can you be bad at that? You are going to improve. Anything you practice, you're going to improve. I suppose that was the case with me. So when I was in high school, going into year 11, I thought I might not do maths because I want to get a good ATAR, and if I do maths, it just might drag everything down. But I was looking at so many of the careers that I wanted to go into. So originally I wanted to go into medicine, so I wanted to be a doctor. And I thought, all those courses require maths. And I thought, well, I have to do a maths. So I was looking at further, and my teacher said, how about you do methods? She even said, how about you do spec? And I was like, no, thank you. But when she said, how about you do methods? I was like, no, thanks. I might just do further. And she said, no, I think you're really capable. And so I decided that maths was going to be my gym for VCE. So every day I would go to the gym. I would go to my maths book. And through doing that, I was able to understand those concepts that I'd previously struggled in. And it got to the end of VCE and I had to choose a career to go into. And I was thinking medicine, I was thinking of doing science at Melbourne. But then one of my career teachers said, why don't you look at engineering? And I sort of wiped it from my mind because I thought, no, like the boys do engineering. It's sort of like building bridges, concrete, not something I'm really into. But then when I looked into it, engineering is such a broad area. So I'm doing chemical engineering. So some of the projects that I work on are water treatment, pharmaceuticals, food science, oil and gas, so many different areas. And so the first thing I do is identify the problem. So they might come, one of the projects I was working on recently was with ExxonMobil. So they work with fuel for your cars. They also provide gas to your households, particularly in Victoria. A lot of our energy comes from offshore platforms. And I was working with them and I got to go out onto one of the offshore platforms, which was really cool. So I got in a helicopter, had to do some heli-sea training where they basically dump you in the water and you have to try to get out of there in a life jacket. Did some firefighter training so I could go out onto the oil rigs. And when we got there, they had an issue with their water. So offshore we use desalination units. So you may have heard about them just because of the drought. Victoria set up a desalination unit, and it's where we take water from the ocean and turn it into fresh drinking water. So the problem with the desalination unit offshore was that there was still bacteria in the water. So we had to identify the problem. So where is this bacteria coming from? And then find a way that we could fix it. So we ended up putting in a chemical dosing system, which would purify the water, and that was able to fix our problem. But the thing with being an engineer is that, and it's sort of like maths, you're never like, oh great, we're done, problem over. There's always going to be new problems arising, there's always going to be new issues that you have to face. Last year I went to Nepal with a group of engineers and we worked on a couple of projects around the 2015 earthquake. So in 2015 there was an earthquake in Nepal that had some really significant damage. So it destroyed a lot of people's homes and they're still recovering from that. So we went over there, we went into one of the local communities and I was working on a project about improved cook stoves. The traditional cook stoves in Nepal are basically just a wood fire on the ground and then the smoke sort of goes everywhere, and this is really, really bad for health. So lots of kids were developing pneumonia. Pregnant women, their children were having like abnormalities, and it was one of those issues that was particularly affecting women because they were the ones who were in the kitchen, or the kids were in the kitchen a lot. And so when you're in Nepal, like you don't have your CAS calculator. There's no computers around, although the Wi-Fi is better. And so you have to really hone into those skills that you've learnt from maths. So although I wasn't able to, plot graphs and work out equations, which you do in class, I was able to use some of the problem-solving skills that I'd developed through school and through uni to come up with some creative solutions. So we ended up putting in a ventilation unit, so essentially a chimney, so that the smoke could go out of the household and hopefully wouldn't be affecting the children there. But it was one of those experiences that without maths, I wouldn't be able to go into an environment like that. And I wouldn't have had the personal growth, but also being able to meet a different culture, being able to try to help a different culture was something that I really took from that. And then just finally, I'm going to touch on what it's like going into a STEM course. So a lot of females are hesitant to go into STEM, and we saw those statistics on the board. So 7% of graduates are females in engineering. And so I'm sort of used to like having a lot of guys around, and it can be a bit of it can be challenging at times. It can be. And I think it's really great that the industry is changing though. So I would really encourage people to get involved because there's a really great work-life balance you can develop. So many opportunities to have an impact on society. So a lot of people, like we saw in the previous video, but a lot of people think if you're good at maths and science, one of the ways you can go into helping people is medicine, which is great, but it is not the only option. There are so many different options out there and so many different experiences that you can go into. So I'll leave you with that. And my advice to you would be, if you are looking to get into maths in year 11 and 12, I highly encourage it. But just go to the maths gym every day and you're like bound to improve. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Laura. One of the things I'd like to reinforce what she said, there's always going to be problems around. So there's always going to be a need for mathematicians to solve them. So when those 45% of the jobs disappear, mathematicians aren't going to be one of the ones that disappear because there's always those problems out there.